This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
What's up, brother?
Yeah, no, I'm just amazed. My sales guy's willing to go to Broward. Wow, that's awesome. Anyway, how you doing, buddy? You doing good?
I'm hanging in there. Oh, how are you?
I'm doing great. I can't complain, man. Watching the Heat and the Panthers, bro. You know,
Yep.
FAU Final Four, Final Four, Nova Southeastern Final Four and title.
Mm-hmm.
Now Panthers and Heat Final Four. There's a lot of Final Four going on here in South Florida.
And a lot of winning, of winning game one on the road for the Panthers and the Heat. They go on the road to take care of business. So kudos to both of those franchises for the ways they've played here in these playoffs. Everybody sort of just discounted them. It's funny, back in the day, you could count on an 8 seed being a quick elimination. Nowadays, anybody who just gets in and gets hot at the right time.
Yeah, and you know, let's call things like we see it. This isn't like this world beater of an Eastern Conference either, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's not like, let's say you're watching Reggie Miller and the Davis boys, and then there's the Cavs with Doherty and Mark Price and Larry Dance Nance and Craig Elo, and then here are the Knicks with Ewing and Starks and Mason, and here's the Heat with Zoe and Timmy, and then there's some guy named Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, you know. So it's just, you know, it's not murderer's row like it used to be. That's why I tell people, like, in the second round when they're facing the Knicks, I'm like, bro, the Knicks aren't anything. Like, Brunson was the only guy that I had real respect for. Outside of that, you know, it's just, you know, where Brunson actually showed me something was I never thought he would be, you know, enough to be a one. But in that series, he played like a one for them at least. That's
he did.
sure. I always looked at him more as a 2 or 3. But I got to give the kid credit, man. He showed me some moxie. But overall, it's just not a great conference right now, you know, at this point. So it's a little bit of a different challenge. And then you don't really get a read in the NBA anymore because there's too much of players resting. You know, that whole
great point.
You know, and that doesn't really give you a good feel. The regular season has always been kind of useless in the NBA. Now it's even worse with load management, you know?
Yeah. And I would say, I think one thing we've seen diminish over time, obviously, is defense. And part of that is the rule changes, right? Yeah. But you just look at the way, I mean, some of these games, the fact that they all get into the 120s and 130s, yes, the three-point shot has changed the game. But I also think there are a lot of nights where guys take nights off playing defense. And it's turned into a make or miss league. Literally, you make shots, you win, you miss them, you got no shot. So,
yep, I'm with you there. By the way, Isais, thank you, sir. A Bitcoin donation to the show. We love that. Cash App or Venmo, Cash Big O Show. You can send a donation and you can send a Bitcoin donation, which is always a beautiful thing. So thank you, Isais. Appreciate that. Manny, I asked Marcel this question. I will ask you this question. Now, I know it's slightly unfair because it's a little too early. So the question maybe for you will be just like Marcel, because it's too early. Do you see some signs, or is it even too early for that? Well, the Miami Heat, 25 years ago, when Pat Riley stepped in, he instilled a culture that has gone on for 25 years, just like Don Shula, by the way. So let's not make this sound like this is something new or something. You know, Popovich had his culture, and Shula had his culture. Just like a lot of the great coaches, there's a culture, and a culture is, you know what you have to do, you know what your responsibility is. Be a professional because they're going to force you to live up to that responsibility. That's basically what culture is. You know what I'm saying? But we watched others establish it. Where in Mario Cristobal's world right now do you see him establishing a culture that, of course, the Canes desperately need? That's what Saban has going. That's what Dabo Sweeney has had for many years now. You know, other coaches that have been going on for a while. Where is Cristobal in trying to establish his own culture?
Yeah. Well, I certainly think from a work ethic standpoint, and working out the entire off season, putting your focus where it needs to be, recruiting the kind of players that have the right mindset. All of those things are things he's prioritizing. But to me, the one tangible thing you can see is the size, the way he's recruiting players, in terms of size up front, and making that an important priority. I think that comes from the Saban school at Alabama. Um, just they won't go after really small guys unless they're special. And I think the last few years at Miami, most of us who watched them line up and play against the teams, we were always like, man, they always look so small, right? Compared to the guys they're lining up against, especially the big time teams. And I think, a culture of you're not going to play here unless you really deserve to play here because you have the right size, the right effort, all of those kind of things. That culture, I think he's establishing here early on. But at some point, he's gonna have to start winning some games. And going
Right, of
5-7, that first year, sometimes that message can grow hollow if you do that again year number 2 or year number 3, right? If you just go back to being mediocre or sub 500. So
Although I don't think they win more than 7 or 8 games this year. I still think this is a transition year for them, to be honest. I
mhm,
don't expect difference till years 3 and 4, to be quite honest. I have enough patience, but I can't expect as bad as you were last year that you're
right.
gonna make that kind of drastic change and jump to 10 wins all of a sudden. I have a hard time believing that. I don't think that's fair to him to have those kind of expectations. Now, I know the average Canes fan does not wanna hear 7, 8 wins. So,
Yeah. Um, I think part of it is the way you win and lose too. Right? We get caught up in win totals.
mhm,
Really, what you want is a program to win the conference and to be competing for a playoff spot every year. That's the real goal. I don't see a big difference between 7 and 9 wins. You get to 10 wins, that's a different mark. But between 7 and 9, I think the difference is: do you get your ass handed to you? Do you get embarrassed? Um, Mario has to eliminate the getting embarrassed part of this equation. You can't go and lose to Florida State 45-3. You can't lose at home by 24 to Duke. You can't, get beat by Middle Tennessee. All of those things have to disappear here in year number 2. And I think anytime you have a setback like that, um, it causes problems in the locker room. It causes problems with recruits. So to me, that's the next part of quote unquote culture, that you brought up. It's can you um, can you basically eliminate what hurts your program? And I think he's still there. He's still working his way there. So
right.
I'm hoping here in year 2, that's where they get to, where if you get beat by a Clemson, it's not by 30 points. It's a touchdown game in the fourth quarter. If you get beat by Texas A&M, who's loaded with talent, it's not a 3 touchdown game. Those are the things that matter, I think, from a perception standpoint, and count almost as much as a victory. You can go 9-3, but if all 3 of those losses are blowout losses, that can be really embarrassing. You go 7-5, but all 5 of those losses are to good teams. There's different ways you can sway that argument in the locker room, and I think that he needs to get rid of the embarrassing defeats more than anything else.
Yeah, no, I'm and especially against bad teams. Those
Hmm.
were the worst ones, but what do you expect? You're not really expecting a big total wins this
No,
year, right?
I still think I think this is a 7 to 8 win team,
Oh, okay, so you agree with me. Okay.
depending on who they play in a bowl game and all that kind of stuff. I think that's what's gonna. You need a little bit of momentum going into year 3. You'd
I
like to
can't
win the
wait
bowl
for
game.
you to write that article. I can imagine the Canes fans are just going to just wanna light their laptops on fire when they read that thing, or their
Yeah.
phones, 'cause, they're not gonna be happy with that, but I think we have to be realistic, unfortunately. Any news on transfers or anything going on the recruiting side?
Well, it's going to be a busy month of June. I mean, all these kids have been announcing, who will be visiting in the month of June. They've got about 3 or 4 different 5-star kids that want to come down and check out the program. Um, Again, they've been here already on campus a few times, but when they actually follow up with an official visit, I think odds are better that you're really in play for them. So, that's basically been it. they had a couple of transfers that they really liked. One of them was a safety who had played for Lance Guidry at Marshall, and followed him to Tulane. He ended up going to LSU, not Miami. They were looking for a little bit more safety depth there. They had a linebacker that they were in on from North Texas. I think he's headed to the SEC somewhere as well. So, you're not going to get all the transfers, and I think that's why conversations about the conference and the future and the quote unquote power to the SEC and Big Ten, those are all big conversations because when
But
you were
nothing's
viewed as
changed since we talked to you, right?
no,
There's
no,
no
nothing's
there's no
changed.
legal development, no legal loophole that they found to get out of this, right? Because
No,
clearly
no,
it's ironclad.
but I think from a perception standpoint, the more this is brought up, that the Big Ten and the SEC have all the money, and this is there's going to be a $30 to $40 million gap year to year to year until the ACC figures something out or the teams break apart. I think all of that it's negative publicity for where Miami plays, and that's going to hurt them on the recruiting trail. That's going to hurt them in the transfer portal. It's going to hurt them in just public
Right.
perception. So, um, yeah, we'll see where that goes. But look, I think just as a follow up to our conversation from earlier this week on Tuesday when I was up in Chicago regarding the ACC, I think the one thing Miami fans and everybody who's a ACC fan needs to just come to grips with is being in the third best conference might be your biggest victory. That you don't want the Big 12 to surpass you, and the Big 12's TV deal is in it being discussed and all that kind of stuff, and they've got they could potentially surpass the ACC by 2030. So that to me is a bigger deal, and when the league breaks up and all that stuff, I honestly, I said this to you on Tuesday, I don't think till 2030. I don't think we'll see any real movement again until the Big Ten has to have a reason to want to add some teams from the ACC, especially if they're getting their asses handed to them every year by the SEC. So, in terms of all that movement, all that speculation, uh, it's great for headlines. It gets people to click on it. People love to talk about it. But the reality is, I just want people who tune into our show to know what's real and what's not. And the reality is, I don't think you'll see anything happen until around 2030.
All right. What are you working on the Athletics so folks can check you out, my friend?
First of all, there's a ton of stuff on there. We did a fun project, all the writers, where we kind of created questions where we would be able to ask all the Power Five coaches,
Like it.
with truth serum. They'd have to answer it honestly. So I had one, of course, for Mario. I had one for Mike Norvell. I wrote the one for UCF as well, Gus Malzahn, since they're joining a quote unquote Power Five conference now. So, and
Did
we
you
had
have
all the
Mario
writers.
eyeing the NFL?
I don't know. I don't think Mario would eye the NFL. I don't think it's necessarily for him. He's had a couple of opportunities and just
I
hasn't.
just don't think he'd ever leave this place. If
I think
he's
this is his dream job.
Yeah,
This is
I think his dream is to get the Canes back to being,
it's a huge
champions.
responsibility.
And I think for the first time ever, they found a coach that really doesn't want to use this as a stepping stone. So that's why I really want Mario to work out, because I think Mario's one of those guys like Larinaga. Like
Yeah,
he's happy here. I'm fine, dude. I don't really need anything more. I got my family. I love being in Miami. I love my cotadito. I love
yeah.
coaching football, all that stuff. And I
You,
love the U. And so, really, if you're a Canes fan, this is the coach you want to succeed, because some of you will get to grow old with him, and that's
right.
actually pretty cool.
And I would say one aspect to this all for Mario is the amount of pressure that he feels to deliver to his teammates. He was a part of when this was the glory days. It's not like Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz never suited up here. Mark Richt wasn't a part of the championship tradition here. It's kind of like Randy Shannon. Randy Shannon was played on those championship teams. He coached on those championship teams. It means more to Mario for all that, and so I don't think we'll ever see him make the jump to the pros, to be honest.
Follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. Read that article. It's got some juicy stuff and some fun stuff you will love. And catch him twice a week here doing his thing with our Canes Wear Miami Hurricanes report. Manny, as always, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.
Good talking to you. Take care, buddy.
Have a great weekend. There you go. Caneswear, baby, 2511 South University Drive in Davie. They've got everything practically with a logo on it, with a Canes logo. Telling you, it's awesome. They got Heat stuff and they got Panther stuff. You got the playoffs going on right now, man. Go down. They got some killer Heat hats and they got great Panther hats. You got to go check it out there at 2511 South University Drive. They got Marlins gear too. They've got InterMiami gear. Got a bunch of stuff also on sale. You could take advantage. Go see Jeff out there. They'll take care of you. Brett is amazing. He has grown this thing into a monster. They're actually moving a couple of stores down to an even bigger store. It seems like every couple of years they just grow so much that they've got to go to a bigger shop. It's really impressive. So check it out for yourself. 2511 South University Drive in Davie. That is Manny Navarro.